Mr. Casada.
Here.
Ms. Arthur.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Hanger.
Here.
Mr. Meyer.
Please join me in the invocation. Lord, we just thank you for this day, this time, and this place. We thank you for our meeting tonight. We pray that you will give us wisdom to make the best decisions for the citizens of Hollywood. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stand up for that. Let's have some rules. How many people plan to speak tonight? Hold your hand up, please. Maybe. Is that for sure or not?
I'm not for sure. We'll see what Frank says.
All right, we're going to be limited to 2 minutes. We're going to do that because of the number of folks that are here, so everybody can get a chance to speak, and we won't have to be here until 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. All right? The rules are, you will speak to the topic. That's for sure. If you start calling anybody names or using foul language, you will be told to sit down. If you don't sit down, this nice police officer over here will escort you out. Everybody understand that? Thank you. Did everybody hear that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And the only reason we do that, with a crowd this size, we just have to stay in control. We're here to have a meeting. We're here to do some things that are required, and we're not the bad guys up here. Our job is to look at what's happening here and make a recommendation based on the rules and what we're supposed to do. Mr. Simpson is going to explain to you what we are supposed to do here tonight. Mr. Simpson, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Sure. This is this is an advisory board, and we are have 2 items on here. I assume most people are here for the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, and that also includes the rezoning. Yes. So what you have before you on this particular applicant is 2 items. One is a small-scale amendment to our comprehensive plan, and then one is rezoning from an APUD, one planned unit development to another type of planned unit development. One was an APUD, which was agricultural planned unit development. This is residential planned unit development. So you have 2 issues here. In this situation, you have 2 levels or types of review that you're doing. First, let's talk about the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a policy statement. So you are advising the commission on a policy statement regarding their exercise of their legislative authority. This is, as it relates to that particular issue, it is not a quasi-judicial hearing. You do not need substantial competent evidence to support your recommendation as it relates to the policy change of going from the existing future land use designation to the requested future land use designation. So as it relates to that, we've heard me talk about quasi-judicial hearings, substantial competent evidence. As it relates to that particular issue, we don't have that high standard. It's a policy issue. But you're also hearing a rezoning request to rezone consistent with the requested land use change. Now, the rezoning request is quasi-judicial. So you need substantial competent evidence in the city, including the commission. We need substantial competent evidence to support the decision made. And the burden initially lies with the applicant to submit substantial competent evidence to support amending the proposed amendment to the rezoning request is consistent with the applicable land development regulations, including the city's comprehensive plan. We have to change the comprehensive plan to make the request consistent. If you don't If we don't change the comprehensive plan, then the rezoning cannot go forward because the request would then be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. It is the change in future land use, which referred to as a small-scale amendment in our in the documents because of the size. You have small-scale amendments, which are handled one way because they're smaller in nature and they only deal with a future land use amendment change, whereas you could have a large-scale or text amendment, which has a different adoption process, but it requires either a much larger land use change or it has to deal with the wording of you're changing the text of our comprehensive plan. We're not doing either one of those. This is a small-scale amendment, but it's still a policy decision. So you have both of those before you today. My advice is, if you don't like the project, then you vote no on the land use change. Because it is very difficult to challenge a decision on land use because it's a legislative action, policy decision. So unless you clearly abuse your discretion, and the city commission clearly abuses its discretion in making a policy decision, the courts will not intervene. Where the courts intervene, where you see the litigation is, it's in a quasi-judicial setting. And so what you don't want to do is approve the land use, but then deny the rezoning. Because now you gotta have a burden to show, okay, what's the substantial competent evidence to support the no on the rezoning once you said you let yes on the land use. That gets kind of hard. So if there is not support for this project, then it's a policy decision. My advice is it's a policy decision that you say no to, that this is just a change we don't support in our comprehensive plan. But as we normally do in these situations, I would recommend that you hear all the evidence. We don't present on the land use and then on the, don't have two hearings, on one on the land use, one on the zoning, because then you're going to have to break up the evidence as it relates to what's relevant to the land use and what's relevant to the zoning. My advice is let the applicant present. You got staff's recommendation on the whole project, the land use and the zoning. Let staff do their presentation. Let the applicant do their presentation. Let the public comment because the public's going to comment on the project as a whole.
Right.
So, trying to distinguish between is that a land use or a zoning comment, that might get a little hard. So I would hear both of them, then vote separately. Vote first on the land use, then you vote on the the rezoning. Now, even if you recommend no on the land use, I would still say you make a recommendation on the zoning, because both items are going to go to the city commission, and one ground for no on the rezoning would be it's not consistent with the land use because you recommended no on it. Right. So that would be logical, but I would still take action on both items.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Does any of the board have a question for Mr. Simpson? All right, thank you very much. So our next item is the minutes. I noticed on the minutes, Val, that the votes didn't get recorded. The motions are noted, but the outcome of the motions were not recorded.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Okay, thank you.
Make that change.
Does anyone else have something? All right, hearing nothing more, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion
I
to
have a
accept
motion
the
to
minutes.
accept, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. All right, Mr. Walker, you're up.
All right. So, Board, as was mentioned, we're looking at two ordinances this evening, and the two ordinances concern 4 parcels that together total about 14.24 acres, and they're located approximately 900 feet west of Center Avenue on the south side of 6th Street, and they're more specifically known, each parcel, as 661 and 659 and 649 6th Street, and then 538 Cedar Avenue. And what the applicant is requesting this evening is a small-scale future land use amendment from low-density single-family residential to a medium-density residential. and a rezone from R2, which is low, medium density, single-family residential, and, as was mentioned, APUD, which is agriculture plan unit development. And they're looking to rezone all of that to RPUD, which is a residential plan unit development. And this is so that they can build 134 townhomes. The largest of the four parcels, which is addressed as 649 6th Street, was at one time an active farm. And back in 2020, March of 2020, the owners obtained a demolition permit to demo the only home on the property, and that has been accomplished. So right now, the property is, what we're considering, is a vacant piece of property. And the largest is vacant, as well as the three smaller pieces. So all of it is vacant. The subject property does abut residential homes on the south, east, and north. And on the west, it abuts a commercial property, which is commonly known in the neighborhood as the News Journal building. There is in your staff report site information that is detailed, and I won't go over all of the details, but if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to then address more specifics within the project analysis. There's also a zoning and land use table in your staff report that kind of shows you what's going on around the parcel, what the zoning is, and what the future land use is to each parcel on the east, west, north, and south. And there's also a project analysis that is very detailed. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the project analysis. I won't go through all of the details, but I will say this, that in addition to criteria that is established in the comprehensive plan, we do analyze amendments in terms of their infrastructure impacts. So when we look at a change of land use, for example, we compare the maximum development potential under each land use that is available for the capacity. So, for example, we look at the future land use now, and we say, based on the future land use now and the density that is permitted, how much water is going to be used, how much wastewater is going to be generated, how much solid waste is going to be generated, what is going to be the impact to traffic. And we determine those things based on the land use and its maximum development potential permitted by law under that land use. Then we do the same for the proposed land use. So in this case, we did it for the low-density residential and for the medium-density residential. And I should say that the applicant's engineer did this analysis. It is also reviewed by staff. And what that analysis showed is that under each scenario, and what we're looking to see is under each scenario, is the city able to support the increase in impacts? So, in a nutshell, obviously, if we're going from a low-density residential to a medium-density residential, the impacts to water, the impacts to wastewater and stormwater and traffic are going to be greater. However, we are able to absorb those impacts when we look at what we're able to handle and process with our potable water plant and our sewage plant and with the capacity of the roads in the area. The engineer's summary is in Exhibit H. It's titled Facility Impact Analysis in your staff report, but they also are required to go through the school board to determine that there's an adequate capacity in the event that this, these townhomes and this subdivision has children, which there probably would be children. So the schools have to look at it to determine whether or not there would be capacity. And they have issued a finding of adequate capacity that is attached as Exhibit I. So I won't go through all of the minutia, the details of the gallons per day and that type of thing, unless you want me to.
No,
So,
I don't think so. Board?
okay. So another thing that we look at is consistency with urban sprawl rule. Florida statutes section 163.31776A and 9B require that when we look at any type of a proposed plan amendment, the law says that it shall be determined to discourage the proliferation of urban sprawl. So in general terms, and as directed by Florida statutes and the rules of the Florida Administrative Code, we look at key urban sprawl indicators. And those would be things like leapfrog development, premature development, and development that does not make efficient use of urban services. And it's basically the local government that is responsible for ensuring that the development does not create urban sprawl. Well, this particular project would not qualify as generating urban sprawl because of the fact that it's surrounded by homes that are already in existence, it's by a main road, and so this would not generate or be considered leapfrog development or anything of that nature. We also look at consistency with the comprehensive plan. So anything that we do in terms of a land use amendment and rezoning has to be consistent with the current comprehensive plan that's been adopted. So we look at the goals, the objectives, and the policies of the comprehensive plan to determine if, in this case, the future land use map is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I did list several of the policies and objectives from the future land use element, as well as the housing element within the comprehensive plan. So if you have any questions about those, I'll be happy to go over them. But in general, staff did find that the requested small-scale future land use amendment is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And the city does have available capacity to serve any increased demand on facilities and infrastructure that is created by the requested development. So that's an important factor in meeting the policies and objectives of the comprehensive plan as well. And then one of the things that we also do is we look at the appropriateness of the requested zoning category. Does it make sense to ask for an RPUD? Right now, it has an agricultural plan unit development, which basically allows farm and farm activities, and we're looking now to go to a residential plan unit development in the residential area. So does that make sense? So when we look at the property, we see it's sandwiched between commercial property on the west and residential homes on the east. There are also homes on the north and the south. The property is less than 1,500 feet from Nova Road. Nova Road is considered a principal arterial, and it's about 600 feet from Center Avenue, and that's classified as a collector road. So they're not considered small neighborhood roads. And the residential plan unit development to allow townhomes is looked at appropriate as being something that's appropriate if you're transitioning. So you're transitioning from commercial property on the west to more single-family residences as you move along. And so in terms of being a transitional use, it is an appropriate use from that perspective. Most of the property is also surrounded by R2 zoning. That's the zoning of most of the homes in the area. And the zoning regulations require that those homes have a minimum floor area of 1,000 square feet. And the minimum floor area of the proposed townhomes is 1,060 square feet. So you won't get this great disparity between what they're looking to put in, these small little units compared to the nice footprint of the homes that are already there. So based on this analysis, staff recommends adoption of an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan by amending the future land use map designation of certain property identified as 649 6th Street, which has a parcel number of 4242-0120-0037, and 661 6th Street, having a parcel number of 4244-0120-0048, and 659 6th Street, having a parcel number of 4244-0120-0045, and 538 Cedar Avenue, having a parcel number of 4242-0120-0046. by virtue of a small-scale future land use map amendment, changing the future land use map designation from low-density single-family residential to medium-density residential, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. So that would be one ordinance concerning the comp plan amendment, future land use. Second ordinance would be to adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from R2, low-medium density, single-family residential, and APUD, agricultural plan unit development, to RPUD, residential plan unit development, and approve the associated preliminary plan and written development agreement for four parcels, together totaling approximately 14.24 acres, located approximately 900 feet west of Center Avenue on the south side of 6th Street, and more specifically known as 661 and 659 and 649 6th Street, and 538 Cedar Avenue. That concludes my
Thank you.
presentation, Board.
Is someone here from the engineering firm to make a present? Oh, I didn't see you sitting back there.
Good evening. My name's Harry Newkirk. I'm with Newkirk Engineering, located 1230 North US Highway 1, Ormond Beach, Florida. I'll start saying good presentation, Brian, as always. He does a lot of work putting these together, and he's always good to work with, City of Holly Hill. Project tonight called the Vineyards, as Brian stated, small-scale comp plan amendment and rezoning for 134 townhome units. The townhome units are fee simple development. They are private development, which means the city doesn't maintain any of the roads. They're built by the developer, and then the water and sewer, once approved, is taken over by the city. But the city will never have to maintain any roads, stormwater. They'll have easements over it and this, to come in there if necessary, but the maintenance is with the development. As far as the comp plan, we do the analysis to determine if the city has water and sewer to supply water. We look at traffic, see the impact of the neighborhoods around. We look at the school board. We have school board approval, so they have the capacity within elementary, middle school, and high school to support the project. Now, as far as traffic, you do an analysis to determine the difference between low density, R2, to medium density, R3, and what does that really mean? R2 is 6 units per acre, R3 is 20 units per acre. We're not trying to do 20 units per acre. That's an RPUD. We're in 9.4 units per acre. So when you look at traffic, low-density residential, that's single-family homes. Just 813 daily trips. Medium-density residential would be 2,727 daily trips. We're not doing that. We're doing a townhome development. Townhome developments have less traffic than single family. So even though we're 134 units, 779 daily trips, less traffic than low density residential. According to ITE, they do all the studies in the state of Florida. It's international, and based on those studies, they determine these rates. And we actually have less traffic with the request. As far as water and sewer, there is a little bit more water and sewer, but as Brian stated, the capacity in the plants within the city have the capacity to support the project. We have fire hydrant flow tests around site that shows this project can meet the required fire flow for the fire department to come in and serve the project. Since the roads are private, we have easements over them, and you got to have a secondary means. The means to access this project's off 6th Street. And then all the roads kind of dead end with cul-de-sacs. However, with initial meetings and the fire department, we'll have a gated, so you can't drive through there, Kavanaugh Drive. So the fire department can actually drive through our site from 6th Street to get over to Kavanaugh Drive if something's blocked, and sometimes there are situations that the roads are blocked, and most of the time, it's not to fight a fire, let's be honest, it's for emergency services, save someone's life. And that's why all developments have these secondary means, and this project would also have this. This site would have an HOA, which means you live in there, you have to pay the fees, so it maintains all the landscaping. No landscaping will be maintained by any property owner, so the look of the development will stay pristine. Why would you want to do that? Because it's townhome development. That means if I bought a unit in there, I want to make sure that I don't lose my value in the units. So that's a good thing. That also protects for silly stuff happening on this development, such as somebody deciding to put up a fence for no apparent reason, or put a spa in their backyard, to store outside stuff. All that creates a nicer product that if we obtain the approvals tonight, or within the city commission, that will come forward as the overall project. The site will have landscaping. The landscaping on 6th Street will be above code, that's a public benefit. And a lot of times when you're doing these projects, you got to say, what are the public benefits? We'll have additional landscaping. We'll also be running water mains through the site that will tie into other water mains. Well, Kavanaugh has 2-inch water main that serves that area. That means they don't even have a fire hydrant down that road. Not at the end of it, I'll say. So when we bring in a 6-inch water main, that increases the water pressure on that street. So all the residents that live on that street will have better water flow, they'll have more pressure inside their house. And we'll make 2 other connections that would increase the water flow and quality in the areas off of our property. The entire site will have 10-foot buffers around there, planted per code, adjacent to the residentials to screen. You're looking at a commitment of $40 to $45 million. Units around 300K, maybe higher depending on material costs. They're 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage, and 2 spaces in the driveways. A lot of times you do townhome developments, there's always a scare, hey, where are they going to park? And this site's going to be overparked when we get into that later on. Basically, you get a rezoning and comp plan approval if this is approved by the city. They will come with the real engineering drawings, which we're going to submit shortly to the city. The stormwater, there's another comp plan about stormwater. This site's in the flood zone. What does that mean? That means, according to FEMA, this site could flood. You have to do engineering analysis, which we've done. We will have 3 interconnected wet detention ponds. Those ponds will generate enough volume to provide double the required comp plan. That means that we will actually be a benefit to the surrounding properties as this system is designed to flood back into our site. The ditch, there's a ditch on the south property line, and it's going to be designed so that entire ditch will flow over into that big pond there on the right, on the backside there, and it'll help the adjacent areas from flooding. We have the additional capacity to do that, and you're required to do that. That's a benefit to the system. When you show it, it works that way. Both the ponds will have fountains that'll give you the water quality so they're not stagnant. And it'll also have amenity, a pool, clubhouse, so park benches and stuff. So it'll be a nice, nice community within the city. And all required city infrastructure is available to meet the needs of the development. And if you have any questions, we're ready to answer them.
Thank you. Mr. Newkirk, would you sit in the end here, right, just in case somebody wants to address you, and then you can speak into the
Right here?
microphone? Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Please remember my rules. You have 2 minutes. You're going to stay on topic, and we're not going to call anybody any names or use any bad words. So Whoever would like to speak against this project, please approach, tell us your name and where you're from. Hi.
My name is Peter Pustai. I live at 546th Street. I've lived on 6th Street for 68 years now. I'm opposed to this because one of the things they just mentioned, that it's a floodplain. They're going to dig out the lakes and, of course, use that fill dirt to bring up the grade of all the property, which in turn, they're not going to be able to capture all the storm runoff. So it's going to, in turn, go into the neighborhoods. And the fact that the additional traffic on 6th Street, it's already bad enough thousands of cars a day go down 6th Street, you know. And with the additional traffic there, 6th Street is one of the worst kept streets in Holly Hill as far as I'm concerned. It's in bad shape. And what are you going to do with the sewer runoff or the sewer? Are you going to have to increase the size of the lines down the whole street, the center street, to the pump, to the plant? How are you going to do that, you know? How much problems is that going to cost the city? So I'm opposed to the changing of the zoning of this thing.
Thank you, Mr. Pustai. Appreciate it.
My name is Terry Tyler. I live at 658 6th Street, and I face 6th Street. I pretty much face that property exactly, and I actually used to work on it with Jim when he had the vineyard. The thing is, like he was saying, when they do their ditches and raise all their levels, our side of 6th Street, which would be the north side, is going to have no floodplain. We're going to be getting soaked. We already have a station there that you guys have been working on for years to try to keep the water down. It's not going to be able to handle it. Then as well, my grandkids like to play in my front yard, and there's more traffic right now than we can handle. So what you're going to do is you're going to add to that. Is your entrance going to be on 6th Street? 6th and Cedar, my house. I am against this completely.
Please come to order. You'll have your chance to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're up.
My name's John Lehman. I live on Center Lane, and I've been there going on 5 years. All right, now when I moved there, it was wildlife behind us. Now we have coyotes, and you do nothing about it. They've killed every cat and all small dogs. What I'm interested in is your water and sewerage system is over 50 years old. This complex is going to tap into it. You can't handle what we have now. How are you going to take care of a larger water line? And where's the sewerage going to go? And where's the runoff going to go? There's a ditch behind my house. When it rains hard, that's half full. And that's all dirt back there. That absorbs all that water. You put up houses with concrete and streets and everything else. Where's the water going to go, and who's going to handle the water, the sewage, and the electric that's going to be needed to handle all these homes? That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you.
I'm Charles Stamper, 604 Center Lane, and then my daughter's 606 Center Lane. We've been there 20 years. A lot of us are all from Center Lane. Like with the map that you had up there, you know, every one of us touched the very top of this. So I don't know if you guys know or not, but every time we get a hurricane or something like that, the whole butt end of our street all floods. Everything, their entire area, the vineyard, is just a lake. It's just a lake. There's a guy who lives behind us. He's got 5 acres. He's great. It turns into a lake. I actually have a levee around my property, so the water doesn't come back up. And it's been a 1/4 of an inch at the bottom of it. Like, there's so much water when we get rain. and especially whenever we get hurricanes and things like that. I know, thank God, we haven't had any in a while. But if they build all that stuff up, it's gonna continue down the street. Every one of us will be ruined. I'm against all of it. I don't, that's just my opinion. I think it's gonna damage every street on our house. I don't know. You guys think for yourselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hey, my name's Phil Canales. I live on 616 Center Lane, and
Sorry, if I may interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys gotta give your name and address clearly in the mic for the record.
616 Center Lane,
And we didn't get your
Your
name.
name.
Phil Canales.
Thank you, Bill.
And about 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, our street actually got flooded totally because we were set. So I agree with him. We got a gully behind our house. If they go building into there, all the wildlife back there and everything's going to get wiped out. And the gentleman over there said they're going to run new pipes to handle more pressure on the pipes to the house, to the area. Well, the pipes on our street, 3rd Street, can't take any more pressure. They got to be at least 35 to 40 years old. We still got the old Danny meters in the front. I mean, they're ancient. So the gentleman across the street from me had to use a boat to get around our street. This was like 6, 7 years ago. That's how bad it gets. So if you're planning more concrete and everything up there, it's just not going to work. And you figure, you said each house needs 2 cars, right? 2 cars times
134.
147, that's 300 and some odd
260.
extra vehicles.
268.
Extra vehicles. Okay, so where are they going? And that's a secondary road. Nova's a main road, but it ain't on Nova, it's on 6th Street. Okay? Then and 3rd Street's right around the corner, so anything coming from that street to this side, it reflects back, and all the wildlife in there. We do have a lot of wildlife there still. I've been there a long time. You're gonna come in there, gonna wipe everything out? No, I don't agree with that at all. I'll fight it till the end. It's just not right.
Okay.
So, I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Juneau. I live at 603 Cedar Ave. Been living there, we purchased the property last year, and we've been living in Holly Hill for about 6 years. We love this community, and we want to stay here all the way through our retirement. So we're hoping to do that, but this project is making me a little nervous. And I'm very concerned about the traffic on 6th Street. It is a horrible road. I know the city or the county put some money in a few years back and they resurfaced the road, but it really needs more than that. The sidewalks are in desperate need of repair. The roads still have, dips and bumps in them. And I mean, every day trucks go by and you can hear the crashing because they're dipping down in the road. The road cannot handle any more capacity. I mean, you're going to have to spend millions of dollars to fix the roads and the sidewalks. I'm also very concerned about the environmental impact. I don't know if any studies have been done, but I think before this project goes any further, you should make the developer pay for an environmental impact study to that area. I know some people don't like the coyotes. I personally don't want to see them go anywhere. There's families of coyotes living out there. There are birds and there are hawks and different endangered, there may be some endangered species out there, and I don't want to see that happen out there. So if before this project goes any further, that developer needs to pay for an environmental impact study, and it needs to be made public. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, please.
It's a very good point as far as the environmental impact analysis, and we will have them do that. Keep in mind that when we look at environmental impact analysis, what we're looking for are species that are endangered or that type of thing, like gopher tortoises. Unfortunately, the state doesn't really allow us to do anything with coyotes and things of that nature. So, But they will be required to do that. That's standard before it develops.
Coyotes is just an overlook, there's a lot more than coyotes.
Yeah. We'll take a look.
Come to order. Let's- Yes, please.
Tim Mostert, I live at 643 6th Street. I have about 300 foot of property that butts up to the Wilson's old property. I have a common ditch that goes down that property. One question for me is years ago, the state came in and took control. My property line is the center of the ditch, and now the state has 10 foot on both sides, which is fine with me because I like to have the ditch bigger. And I'm willing to give up the property to do that, but I also want to know the impact on how far that their project will go. Also, Jimmy Wilson, I've been there with Jimmy while he was doing that. And when Jimmy was bringing in all the fill dirt and bringing the whole ground up, I asked him, where are you getting all this, Jimmy? This must cost a lot of money. He said, well, I made a deal with the county. This is what Jimmy told me. He goes, they're cleaning all the ditches and they're bringing in all over here. So my concern is the muck, you're bringing in muck from the side of the ditches, which I don't know. I'm only telling you what Jimmy told you. So you may want to do a check on the soil samples before you get going any deeper. Another question is like the traffic. Everybody has the traffic issue, and of course, I do too. When I leave in the mornings, I go up to Ridgewood, and I get on Ridgewood, and I turn right to go to 5th Street, and then I turn around and do a U-turn and go down Ridgewood, and when I'm in my mirror, I'll be at 11th Street, and the lights never changed. So please,
That's off the,
do something about that.
you're off the top.
That's all I got.
We were gonna talk about that, I talk about that too. I use 6th Street every day. And I hate that light.
Christina Bolin, Center Avenue, Holly Hill.
Address, what's the number?
1716.
Thank you.
I'm neither for nor against this project currently, mostly because I'm not very familiar with the area nor the proposed project details. However, I do feel it would be rather reckless of you all to not reconsider making a decision this evening. I feel you all should push back this meeting in regards to the future land and rezoning, simply because of the ordinance in itself. When you have the development agreement incorporated into the ordinance, which is binding, and it's essentially going to last forever and kind of relieves the city of any obligations or recourse or anything like that. I just think you should reconsider, because I'm curious as to ramifications. If you agree with this and rezone it tonight, how is that going to affect the future use? Like, what if this project, for whatever reason, didn't come to light as it is suggested it may? Would you ever be able to scale back that rezoning or change, the future plans? I just feel you should really, really think about it. Or maybe the commission or whoever is a part of the ordinance.
This is a
thinking.
deliberative process, and we are thinking about it. We've read all of these things, and we are thinking
Would you
about it.
reconsider
And we're listening
having
to you.
this meeting at a later time? Maybe review the
Thank you for the
the
suggestion.
ordinance before making any drastic decisions? Or no?
You'll
No.
find out shortly.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
You have a lady coming up?
Good evening. My name is Joanne Lane, and I live in the Palm Tree Log Cabin at 658 6th Street. I've been there for 20 years, and I I do realize that, you know, we have to make progress and that the land needs to be used for something, but I am opposed to the medium density. I would be okay with residential housing, because something has to go there, I know that. But just to look out my front yard, which is facing, you know, that area, and see tall buildings and have all that additional traffic, I am absolutely opposed to that. So just wanted you to know.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Raymond Taylor. I live at 602 Center Lane. And what I'm concerned about is Center Lane going to be open to go into this project?
I don't see why.
Yeah. Is that going to open up and all the traffic going to come out of there?
No connection to Center.
Huh?
No connection to Center.
No connection?
Whatsoever. No. Only to 6th Street, one spot. No connection.
Okay. That's what I'm concerned about, because I have my grandkids always come up here, and they're kind of playing on the side of the street and stuff and riding the little four-wheelers up and down, and when if they open that street up for anything, then it's going to change everything in there.
Sure, I agree.
And I'm totally against stuff like that.
Okay, doke.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dawn Boland, 1716 Center Avenue. I just want to go ahead and mention the medium density with regards to all these projects, the school itself, as far as the capacity of the children at that school. When you have 600, 800 residences going in that go to Holly Hill Elementary and Middle School, I think that has to be considered. You got a lot of residences, you got a lot of people moving into the city. Just because they wound up getting an approval for this project with regard to the school board doesn't mean that all the other projects were considered. And so where's a new school going? When you have 800 residences, 6, 8, I'm not certain what that number is at this point. They're all going to have 2 children. You got $300,000 homes. I don't know where the jobs are coming from with regards to the people, but the residentials, you're going to need to consider opening a new school. As far as the zoning to medium density, I don't believe that it is going to be severely impacting, again, with regards to squeezing 1,060 square foot homes into these 4 acres. It's ridiculous. It does,
Mr.
yeah, it
Newkirk,
does
that's
seem
out of order.
like, keep it low density if you're going to deal with the project, or if not, consider new schooling and the elevation of the land. Are the other residences going to be flooding? You're dispersing water all over the city with regards to these projects. Their land is increased. We understand that with the build. You got homeowners associations where are you getting these residences with jobs to deal with $300,000 homes and homeowners association fees? You really got to consider what you're doing. Thank you.
Mr. Newkirk, would you like to correct the number of units that are going into that development, please? Yeah. The question, Mr. Newkirk, that I have for you is, how many units did you say?
134.
134. That is not 600 or 800.
That's not 600. The rest of the city,
Sit down, man.
they all go to school.
Again, Harry Newkirk, Newkirk Engineering, addressed some of the comments that came up here. The significant ones, we'll start with environmental. So we have an environmental study completed. We'll provide it to the city this week. When you do an environmental study, you look at a few things. Wetlands and threatened endangered species. You do this mainly to show the city. Number 2, for St. John's River Water Management District permitting, which is required for each project. You have to get that permit. So when we did the study, there are no threatened endangered species. What is that? Gopher tortoise, so gopher tortoises, bald eagles, those sort of things. We didn't have any of them on site. Most sites already cleared, so you had a few trees, and it was a vineyard at one time. So that study will come in and it will show there's, it doesn't talk about coyotes for one, but there wasn't any significant environmental issues on site. We also did geotech. We have geotech for the whole property. We know the soils are good for development. Or once we got that geotech report, we would have walked. We certainly wouldn't develop the site if the dirt on site's no good. So we've already looked at that. School board. So we do have school board concurrency. And when you do school board concurrency, each project's required to do a school board concurrency. And Volusia County School Boards tables it all up. They know every single project coming for school board concurrency. So they know when they need to do another school. They know when you have to pay for students if they were going to do portables or any of that extra stuff needed within a school. None of that was needed on this site. Drainage. So I'm at a good position with drainage because I've already designed it and I know how it works. And this site is bordered by 6th Street. It's got, to the east, it's got a ditch that goes around the site. To the south, there's a ditch. No matter what we do with filling the site, but you can't fill the site too high or you just not economical to even build the site because you have to build retaining walls and all kinds of stuff that you don't want to do, making the site not feasible to build. So we've looked at the drainage, it's designed. We are required, when you do a new development, to not discharge stormwater to adjacent properties. That affects the flood elevations, that impacts surrounding neighborhoods, that promotes more flooding to those neighborhoods. We couldn't even get an approval by the city of Holly Hill for the project if we didn't show that compliance. We couldn't get a permit from St. John's River Water Management District. This entire site requires FEMA approval by the federal government. So we'll have to have, and that's a very difficult permit to get. So we have to have all those permits to do the project. Now, I'll give you an example of how good this stormwater system is going to be. And it's not always the case like this, but we're digging 3 huge wet detention ponds. And when you look at a development, you say, hey, are they putting a lot of impervious surface on here? Are they just building all impervious?
Will you explain what impervious is?
Oh, impervious is hard surface like asphalt, concrete, houses.
Things that water can't permeate.
Water
through.
cannot, and they have to then go into the grass or the stormwater ponds. So this site is 42.6% of the site will be impervious. 57.4% of the overall site will either be a pond or green space. 57.4% open space. So we're not just building the whole site out with impervious and that which would totally increase stormwater. So the site, when you have townhomes, you condense your units so you have more green space. That's the idea on that, and that's why it's a good overall environmental design. The stormwater, just so everyone understands, we have to look at storm events. And what are they? 5.3 inches in one day. That's an event. 9.5 inches in one day. What is that? That's a hurricane. Then we look at 12.4, they call it the 100-year storm event, 12.4 inches of rain in one day. So, the site right now, and why there's probably problems, it just discharges right off site with no control. Water just goes off into the ditch, and when you have something going on like that, there can increase flooding because the site just is out of control, back and forth. So for that 5.3 inches of rain in the pre-development, which means right now, how it looks right now is a vineyard, nothing on it, It discharges 19 CFS. That's the rate of water coming off the site. When we do the development, zero. Zero.
Cubic
For 5 point,
Mr. Newkirk,
yeah,
CFS, cubic feet per second.
is the rate that the water's coming off the site. Okay? Now, volume of water. Before we do the site, 191,000 cubic feet. Volume, that's the amount of water. Zero. So that's a stormwater improvement. 5 inches of rain, over 5 inches of rain, this site will not have 1 ounce of water going off the property. For the 25-year storm event, which is always a critical thing to know about, and that's a hurricane. So that's when people can be really impacted by these neighborhoods that are flooding. And why are they flooding? Well, they're just built low. Over time, the stages in the river have gone up and FEMA's put them in flood zones and stuff because over the last few years, 20-something years, the ocean rise 1 foot. In another 10, it'll rise another foot. So that's what's causing flooding, the raise of the ocean. 25-year storm, the volume of water off the site is roughly 400,000 before we even do any work. And when we do our project, it's only 16,000 cubic feet. It's significant. I mean, this design is so significant in saving stormwater discharge, because I knew it was the key item, and adding floodplain volume to the surrounding neighborhoods that are already flooding, because when I look at the site, the whole site's in a flood zone. So we have to do something to increase the storage of flooding around the site so we don't impact. Like again, we have to get a St. John's permit. Very difficult. And FEMA. This whole site requires a FEMA permit. It's one of the most difficult permits to get. So, and lastly, a 100-year storm event, 542,000 cubic feet off the site before we even do a development. With the development, 142,000. We got like 3 times as much volume of water in the floodplain on this development. So this development's going to help surrounding properties as those ditches can come into our stormwater system. It's designed to allow it to flow in there, so we are a benefit. That's one of the things as engineer in the state of Florida, when I sign the drawings, I got to be looking at a few things. I got to look, and it's required on the ethics of being an engineer that I'm protecting the public with the design. So even this site is going to be owned by the public. They're all going to be residents in the city. So when it's designed, I'm looking at that impact and the surrounding neighborhoods, so we're not causing adverse impact, especially with stormwater flooding. This site, no questions at all, will have no issues with flooding. I know I try to, the correct word is dumb it down a little bit as far as the numbers, but it's significant on how much we're saving the stormwater discharge. And I'll be honest, this is probably one of the best systems I've done in a long time that has so much extra volume and treatment volume just so we don't have these issues, because I'm very familiar with the city of Holly Hill and areas that have flooding issues. Lastly, traffic. So again, we're going for an RPUD, and the reason you do that is when you zone it or do a project, the city knows what you're getting, okay? Well, you're not going to come do an RPUD and come back and say, oh, hey, we're going to do this project. This project's going to be knowing exactly where the driveway connections are, every aspect of this project when you do an RPUD. That's the benefit of RPUD versus just straight zoning. You're like, oh, what are they going to build? Well, these plans that we'll submit will show exactly what we're going to build. And with the PUD, we can't build something else, or we have to come right back to this process. And I like y'all, but we don't want to do that again. So it's added protection. You know what y'all are getting. The traffic, it's designed so the road was in the middle of the development. And it happened to be Cedar Street. You want to line roads up. Why? Because you want less conflicts. When someone makes a right and a left, if they're not lined up, you could have an accident. So we're lined up with Cedar, and Cedar happened to be in the middle of the development. And there's already a Cedar right-of-way coming into the site. So it's a perfect location to line up. Unfortunately, there's some property owners on the other side of the street at that location. But it's a good location. It's the best location to put for the development, to be honest, because it's in the middle, has the least amount of impact. The other connection, someone mentioned Center. We're not tying into Center. There's only one driveway connection that's going to be open to the development. There is a connection for emergency services. It's gated. No one from the development can go through there. You could walk through there, I guess, but it's no traffic. The trips, another question on traffic on 6th Street. 6th Street is not a failing road. It's not failing with the amount of traffic that's on it right now. Low-density residential, again, has 813 daily trips. We're doing a RPUD. We'll have 779. That's less traffic than current zoning. It has low-density residential is 64 AM peak trips. We're at 59 with the RPUD. PM peak, 86 PM peak hour trips for low-density residential, and we're at 70. So this development, even though it is asking for a medium density in the comp plan, okay, and the city, when we transfer the comp plan, we have to go with that density increase to R3 in the comp plan. But when the project comes through in RPUD, we're not taking advantage of 20 units per acre. Couldn't fit on site anyways, but we're in at 9.4, and we show with the different classification of townhomes, we'll have less traffic. So hopefully, I believe I answered all the questions that arise.
I think you did.
If y'all have any more questions, I can answer them.
Did you already speak, sir?
Yeah, I just have one question.
All right, you may ask, hold on a moment. If I let you ask that question, then I have to let others ask a question as well. You understand? So will you ask Mr. Newkirk after we adjourn tonight? Then, would you mind?
I'll give up my time for now.
Pardon me?
Can I give up my time for now?
No, ma'am, you can't. All right, Mr. Newkirk, thank you. You can sit back down. I didn't recognize you yet, sir. This lady had her hand up before you did.
My name's Fred Day. I live at 600 Center Lane. And in '93, we had a flood down there. We couldn't go, we had to have a boat to get off Center Lane. Okay, all that water is going to run down on our street. Okay, and now if you're going down 6th Street, you want to make a left-hand turn and you know how many people's going backed up behind you because there's people coming in front of you? You're not going to get nobody be able to turn there. You got garbage trucks that already blocks the roads up. They're not going to be able to get in there. It's just going to be a traffic mess.
All right, thank you. Ma'am, did you want to come? No, Miss Heidi, I picked this lady up here in front of you. You can come next.
Melissa Jamie, and I'm at 610 Center Lane. Our property butts up directly to the area. The two main things, he mentioned before that the retention ponds were going to have a sprinkler system or a fountain to keep the water flowing. Only 2 of the 3 ponds show that. The one pond that sits directly behind our house does not show that. So does that mean that's going to be stagnant water sitting there?
I'm not sure.
And then the coyotes, which they say is not an issue, there's dozens. I sit and listen to them every single night. What is going to happen? Are we going to relocate these guys? I'll be very glad to see them go because they are destroying the other animals in the area, but how are they going to relocate them? Because they're just going to start building and they're going to manually disperse everywhere.
Coyotes aren't protected animals. You can shoot them at night.
They're going to kill them.
Wow.
Guarantee it.
Wow, okay.
Thank you.
But, so that's the water, the stagnant water behind my house is the
Yes, sir. I understand that.
Thanks.
All right, Miss Heidi, you're up.
Hi there, I'm Heidi Heller of 460 Ridgewood Avenue. Thank you very much for allowing me my little time, and I'd like to thank the developers for considering Holly Hill. I'm not a fan of higher density than regular homes. I'm not a fan of mobile home parks, even though I live in one, and I'm glad this is a development that's coming about it's a little bit too high density. I think that a lot of people here don't like that, and I agree with them. A couple questions that might not be germane, or I don't know, Mr. Simpson confused me a little bit in his distinction between the zoning and the different ordinances. So these are just little questions. It was a vineyard before, and my concern was, is there any need for soil testing for pesticides? And if there is, I would like to have that done, because there will be children there, and I don't want them to be influenced by the pesticide residue, long-term or short-term. Let's see, Cedar Avenue, according to the map from the Volusia County Property Appraiser, actually goes down into what's property that's on the map here, that's in shadow, that's owned by the Department of Environmental Protection. And does the developer have plans to add an additional, looks like 12 units, and it's 536 Cedar. So I was wondering, it's becoming a landlocked parcel that's in the middle of the development. And the other part of land, a road that's on the property appraisers, is Ash Street, and that's totally disappeared. Those are quick questions. And the other question would be, are the developers getting any incentives to come here? Any write-offs that we need to be aware of? Or is that applicable to this commission?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Ms. Ivy. Yes, sir, come ahead.
Good evening. All the board members live in Holly Hill.
Sir, tell us
Yes.
your name and where you live.
Excuse me. What I'm trying to bring out is that,
Listen to me. You tell me your name and where you live. You want to borrow one of my hearing aids? Tell me your name. Your name. What's your name? Yes.
my name is Ross Catalano,
Where do you live?
630 Churchill Drive.
Thank you. Now, ask
May I continue?
Go ahead.
Thank you. The board members, I hope, live in Holly Hill.
Sir, that's not relevant to this discussion. One of the things I told you in the beginning was we were
No,
going to
the
stay on
reason
top.
why I'm asking is that if you lived in Holly Hill, you have a single-family residence. Why would you want to have more than a single-family residence built in your backyard if you don't want it? I don't want it in my backyard. Do you want it in your backyard? 134 unit housing development?
I have a suggestion. Mr. Newkirk, how much would your client take for the wait a minute, I'm going to work it out for you. You can buy the piece of property, and then you can decide what to do with it.
What?
The property. You can buy it and then
Excuse
decide.
me, the board members moved to Holly Hill to have a single-family residence, correct?
That's not germane to this,
You-
this is not
you live
germane.
in
You
your
are
own
not,
home.
you are not germane to this topic. That where we live has nothing to do with you. I own a
So,
townhome. Well, so what difference does that make?
You want something like that in your own backyard?
I think I would be quite happy to have something like this in my backyard.
I don't want it in my backyard.
Now we know where he's going, don't we?
Well, you're going to hear my vote in a minute.
I think the people in my neighborhood feel the same way.
Yeah, we don't want them there.
Well,
All right.
then speak
Thank
to
you.
Mr. Newkirk and buy the property.
How much they want for it?
I don't even think he lives in Holly Hill. He probably doesn't want it in his
Yes,
own
ma'am.
backyard.
I'm going to allow two more people to address the board.
Hello, my name is Cheyenne Stamper. I live at 606 Center Lane. I agree with everybody else on the displacement of the wildlife. Where are they going to be? I had a bear in my yard a couple weeks ago after all the other new developments, as well as the flooding and everything. And then, you know, being opposed to this, the only thing I can say is like, you have one entrance and exit to this neighborhood and you're allowing more people to live here. And there's no more pedestrian planning for like pedestrian traffic. So as far as like schooling and kids getting to Holly Hill School, there's no plans that I can see moving forward for them, as well as bus stops added and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a good question. I appreciate it.
Randy Allgett, 459 Card Avenue.
Did you get that, Valerie?
I heard Randy.
Allgett, A-U-G-A-T.
Thank you.
Okay. There's two ordinances on the agenda tonight. The second one is for redoing the RPUD ordinance.
A rezoning, yes, sir.
Well, it's not a rezoning, it's a change to the RPUD. There's a rezoning with this project, but there's also a second agenda item that talks about changing the RPUD to allow for the retention ponds to be used for open space. So my question is were those provisions used for this project in the design? The provisions in the new ordinance, or the proposed ordinance changes?
No.
No? So this project is proposing 13.2 units per net acre. They say 9.4, that's the gross acreage, but the R2 zoning says 6 units per acre. R4A, which allows for townhouses, is 7 units per acre. And the R6 allows for duplexes and townhomes, and it's 12 units per acre. So this is increasing it to 13 residential. And one of the other interesting things on all of these zonings, this is a 50% lot coverage. Their lots are about 80 feet by 20, and they cover 50% of that, which is greater than any other residential area in the city. There's none of them, there's 35% is about the greatest amount that you'll have lot coverage in Holly Hill for a residential area. The comp plan, let me just want to read what your RPUD says. The purpose and intent of the plan unit classification is to be consistent with a comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, your time's up, Mr. Allgett.
That a proposed development be
Mr.
subject
Allgett,
to.
your time is up. That was the last one. I said I was going to allow 2 more, and that was the second. Is there anyone that would like to speak for this?
I'm kind of neutral. I'll speak. That's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. If you'd like to speak, you're welcome to come up and
Nice
speak.
to be on this side of the aisle. Name's Nick Mostert, 715 Marlene. My little brother lives in the house we were raised in, next door to the project, 643 6th Street. Did I understand the utilities are underground on this project when I was reading about it?
Mr. Newkirk says yes.
That's what I thought.
They're required to be for a PD.
Okay. The traffic studies, do they factor in if a business moves into the News Journal building and has the 200-300 cars there, and that capacity, I was just curious about whether that's taken into consideration. As far as the project itself, I'm not against it. And I'm trying to learn more about it to endorse it. The flooding, based on the engineer's study and knowing the hoops they have to jump through on those things, I feel pretty confident that that won't be a big issue for the surrounding properties. What I would hope to see on a project like this, if it moves forward, we're the treed city of the community, is maybe, landscaping to support that, theme that we have in this city. And if there's anything we can do to mitigate the little critters over there, that would be nice too. As far as Scott, you mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, the land use change, you would need substantial confidence evidence in order to change that.
Actually, the opposite.
Okay, I said it backwards. When, or who makes that determination? The full commission, or?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for? Does the board have any questions? We have two issues before us, we'll have two votes.
One issue I think maybe I should have said it when I first spoke. What you're looking at, your first item that you should take action on is your comprehensive plan amendment. And this property is allowed to be developed a certain way. And they're obviously asking for some increase to that. So the question is the impacts of increasing development over what's allowed, as opposed to, a lot of the comments I heard were opposed to the development of this site in any fashion, just opposed to development at all. And that's not really the analysis you need to be focused on. Your focus needs to be, they're allowed to develop it under their current land use and zoning now. What is the impact of that? And then what is the increased impact of what they're looking for? And I know it's easy for people to say, they look at it from the standpoint of, this is going to impact our property, me so much when you develop this site. Well, there's a right to develop that property. They're asking to modify that right, so the analysis needs to be, what is the increase impact of developing this property over and above what they're already allowed to do? That's really what the focus needs to be on, if that makes sense. So. Yes.
So they did bring up questions about sidewalks, and is there anything in the PUD that would address something like that? Is there?
The development will be required to have a sidewalk in front of it.
Okay. So we're looking at 40 units more.
Are you talking about on 6th Street or internal?
On 6th Street.
Right. So on 6th Street, whenever you have property that is developed, even if it's a single-family home, the code requires that a sidewalk be done in front of that property. So this property will be required to, one of two things, either do a sidewalk, or if they don't do the sidewalk, then they would need to pay into a sidewalk fund. So you have folks that opt for different reasons to choose either to do the sidewalk or to pay into the fund.
Okay.
So there is a requirement that be addressed at some level.
And did anybody ask, like, what is the setback or the landscaping from 6th Street? Because that's what everybody's going to be looking at, right? Is the landscaping from 6th Street?
Yeah,
Is that
it's kind of hard to see on the plan, but it's 25 feet
25 feet? That's significant.
from 6th Street.
Mr. Hager, you had a question?
Yeah, I believe there's a sidewalk that runs down 6th Street now, right in front of this project. So it's already there, but it's not in the best of shape. Will the city be looking at repairing that or anything?
These are really questions that occur at final engineering.
Okay.
Okay, right now, we're just, when we look at just the rezone and the comp plan, we're just looking at, are they able to do what they're asking? So it's a good question, Mr. Hanger, but we're not looking at the actual engineering of the site at this time.
I understand that. I was just answering her question and some of the other questions, but I do understand what you're saying, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Costanza, you look like Casada, you're Costanza, I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
You look like you're deep in thought. You have a question?
How many acres is that piece of property?
A little over 14.
14.
and a quarter.
Can I ask Mr. Newkirk a question?
Yes, please.
Harry, 14 acres,
14.25.
how many homes?
134,
What did it come down to be?
9.4 units per acre.
Of 14 acres?
Gross.
14 acres.
But when we put the two lakes, ponds, whatever
Oh.
you call them,
1 second. That came to 13.21.
okay, thank you.
I have another question too. Is there something to,
Address me.
oh, I'm sorry. May I ask?
Yes, you may ask a question.
Thank you. The one lady had a question about the stagnant water in the one pond. Is that something?
So, that's a great question. So all the retention ponds are interconnected. They'll be interconnected by a 24-inch stormwater pipe, so they'll flow all together. So there's fountains in one that water quality goes through all of them, so it's not stagnant system.
Okay, thank you.
Any more? All right. Thank you, Mr. Nicker. We'll address the comprehensive plan issue first. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan by amending the future land use map designation of certain property identified as 649 6th Street, having parcel number 424401200037, and 661 6th Street, having parcel number 424401200048, and 659 6th Street, having parcel number 424401200045, and 538 Cedar Avenue, having parcel number 4244-01200046, by virtue of a small-scale future land use plan amendment, changing the future land use map designation from low-density single-family residential to medium-density single-family residential, providing for conflicting ordinances and providing for severability and providing an effective date. Do I have a motion to recommend that to the City Commission?
I'll make a motion to recommend that.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Will you call the question, please? Oh, is there any discussion? I'm sorry. Any more discussion? Will you call the question, please, Ms. Valerie?
Mr. Hanger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Casada?
Yes,
Ms. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
And the second, I just had here a moment ago. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, creating an amendment to the land development regulations by amending Chapter 114 titled Zoning, Section 114-771 titled Planned Unit Development Regulations of the Land Development Regulations to add definitions and reduce the percentage of required open space?
Chair?
Providing, sorry?
It's the wrong one, sir.
I told you I had problems with that.
This is the one for the rezone.
What page is this one on? Oh, I see it. Thank you. How did I get, we weren't doing that tonight, were we? The one I just read? We're not doing that tonight, right?
We're doing we just did the comp plan, so we'll do the rezone now
The
for that
proposed
same
ordinance of the
property.
rezone, okay.
And then we have a second item.
All right, adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from R2 low medium density single-family residential and APUD agricultural planned unit development to RPUD residential planned unit development, and approve the associated preliminary plan and written development agreement for 4 parcels together totaling approximately 14.24 acres located approximately 900 feet west of Center Avenue on the south side of 6th Street, and more specifically known as 661 6th Street, 659 6th Street, 649 6th Street, and 538 Cedar. Do I have a motion to approve, to recommend to the commission?
Make a motion to approve as read.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Ms. Valerie, call the question, please.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hanger?
Yes.
Mr. Casada?
yes.
Ms. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes. Motion carries. When will this go to the commission, Mr. Walker?
This will go to the first meeting in September. So the date on that
The 9th.
is the 12th. Yes. Which is a Monday. Normally, it would be a Tuesday, the 13th, but that commission meeting has been moved to Monday, the 12th. So that's when this will go.
Now I finally understand why I was so confused by this earlier today. So item 2, Mr. Walker.
Yes, this is a proposed ordinance which is to amend Section 114-771E as well as E1 of the Land Development Regulations. And what those regulations do are address open space requirements for residentially based plan unit developments and the residential portion of mixed-use plan unit developments. The current regulations state that 60% of an RPUD and the residential portion of an MPUD shall be open space. Now, open space is defined in the land development regulations as that portion of land or water not used for buildings, street rights-of-way, or off-street parking and loading areas. The code currently further requires that a minimum of 35% of that open space be designated as common open space. Now, common open space means commonly owned land that is reserved primarily for the leisure or recreational use of the owners of a residential development. So in this respect, common open space is a subset of open space. So it's staff's opinion that the percentage of required open space for residential plan unit developments and the residential portion of an MPUD is...
You want to take a break?
Well, a short adjournment.
We will respectfully wait.
I was just going to ask, is there anyone else that would like to rudely get up and walk out? All right. So all the polite people stayed, I see. All right. You want to go?
One question.
About what?
You have here, this was supposed to be a single-family residential plan. And according to his pictures there, they're all apartments. There are no single-family homes listed on there.
They're townhomes,
correct?
sir. They're townhomes.
Pardon me?
They're townhomes. And those are, they're single
Apartment
family.
buildings.
No, sir, they're not. We can discuss it after the meeting, you and me. I'd be happy to discuss it with you. Excuse me?
They, to reside there, they would have to buy a unit
That's correct. In fee simple, Mr. Newkirk said that right off the bat.
like a condominium.
It's a town, well, it's like a condominium. It's a townhome. Yeah. All right. Mr. Walker, please continue. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Sure. So looking at the percentage of required open space now, for the RPUD and for the residential portion of an MPUD, it's staff's opinion that it's unnecessarily high. Based on staff's experience, such a high open space requirement is very restrictive for the types and the sizes of the parcels for developments that we have within the city of Holly Hill. For example, the minimum parcel size required to develop an RPUD in the city of Holly Hill is 2 acres. So a 60% open space requirement for a parcel of this size means that only 0.8 acres can be used for any pervious development. Staff has also reviewed the residential PUD open space requirements of several other jurisdictions in the area and found that most are about 35%. So the proposed ordinance reduces the amount of required open space for residentially based plan unit developments, RPUDs, and the residential portion of an MPUD from 60% to 25%. It also requires that if retention ponds are to be counted toward open space, that they be amenitized. And a definition of what amenitized means is also provided in the proposed ordinance. Current regulations require that 35% of the required open space be dedicated to common open space, that can be used by all residents. The proposed ordinance reduces this type of required open space to 15% and removes it as a subset of general open space. It further adds language to specifically allow community pools, pool houses, or other recreational facilities such as a fitness center, excluding the office areas of such facilities, to be counted as open space. So, really in summary, the ordinance reduces total open space from 60% of the site to 40% of the site. And it requires that retention ponds counted as open space be amenitized. And it allows that 15% of that open space contain recreational structures. So based on this, staff recommends adoption of an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending and enacting an amendment to the land development regulations by amending Chapter 114 titled Zoning, Section 114-771, titled Plan Unit Development Regulations of the Land Development Regulations, to add definitions and reduce the percentage of required open space, providing for codification, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Walker?
Yes, I do.
Please.
How were the percentages determined? How did you come about the percentages?
They're based on the gross acreage.
Gross
So you look at the gross acreage of a site, and then you would say 60% of that. So you could either turn it into square footage, and then just multiply that by 0.60, or you could do that with an acre. So you have an acre, it's 43,560 square feet, multiply that by 0.60, and you get 60%.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker, will you read the definition of amenitized for me, please? I can't seem to find that ordinance.
So amenitized, an amenitized pond means that a fountain, that it has a fountain or is surrounded by an area such as a walking trail, accessible benches, or a picnic area. And this is done so that you can't just do a retention pond and say, we're gonna do this pond and then count it toward our open space. If you want to really count it toward open space and have it be something that's enjoyable or an asset to the community, it's something that we're trying to require that it look nice, that it be something that people want to go to with their dog or walk around or sit on benches, or that it at the very least have a fountain to keep the water moving and provide an amenity to the neighborhood.
Could we require them to stock it with fish?
No, sir, we
Darn.
fish.
All right, thank you. No questions for Mr. Walker. Is there anyone that would like to speak against this? Anyone that would like to speak for it? All right, no more questions. Then I would entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, enacting an amendment to the land development regulations by amending Chapter 114, titled Zoning, Section 114-771, titled Plan Unit Development Regulations of the Land Development Regulations, to add definitions and reduce the percentage of required open space, providing for codification, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Do I have a motion to recommend approval to the commission?
I'll motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Any questions? All right. Call the question, please, Ms. Valerie.
Mr. Hanger?
Yes.
Mr. Casada?
Yes.
Ms. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, motion carries. All right, if I can find my agenda amongst all these papers. I think we're at old business, if I'm not mistaken. Is there any old business?
Yes. I wanted to just make a clarification with the board. At our last meeting, there was a variance request for 732 Avondale. The variance concerned a rear yard setback, and it was considered, it was something that the board decided that you would recommend. However, when the motion was made, it was stated that it was a side yard setback. So I just wanted to, the only setback that was on the agenda with regard to that property was a rear yard setback. No side yard setback was needed. So I just wanted to clarify that with the board, make sure that you did mean a side yard setback, that you're okay with that, in all transparency, because if someone from the public goes back and looks at the last meeting, they're going to see that it says a side yard setback, but it is actually a rear yard setback. And the staff report and all of the exhibits do show a rear yard setback.
Yes.
I've visited that property, and we are correct. There is no backyard to it, so the definition was definitely meant to be the side yard. So,
Side yard or rear yard?
well, the rear yard, because there is no rear yard.
Right.
So I understand. That's where the
So that's
confusion
what you
came.
intended. Mr. Smith, what did you intend?
There is no back, I've been to the property also.
So you-
The house
you
is
agreed
right
that
on
it
the
was the rear
backyard, so
yard.
they need
Ms. Loretta?
variance for the rear yard.
Yeah, I remember asking the question on the side yard, and you said that it met
That it
the
met-
standard size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That it was.
So the intention was the rear against the
Yeah.
commercial, yeah.
Mr. Casar, that was my intention as well.
Okay.
So that, yes.
I just
the
wanted to
board-
make
the
sure
board
that
agrees.
everyone meant rear yard. Good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I lost my agenda again. What's next?
Adjournment.
That's it?
That was it, that was
All right.
everything.
Okay. How about, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Requires no discussion. All in favor, say aye.